call the special meeting of the Caledonia Community Schools to order. We'd like to start with item 1, the Pledge of Allegiance to honor our country. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. May I ask our Secretary Pro Tem to call the roll?
Robert Garcia. Here. Brando.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Cohen. Here. Morris.
Here.
Nichols.
Okay, next item is consent agenda. Item 5A, July 28, 2025, regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
In present turnaround, Michelle. I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, please call the vote.
Robert Garcia.
Yes.
Brando.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Cohen. Yes. Morris.
Yes. Item 6, I just want to start off with a little bit of opening statements that the board is at its final point in making a decision on replacing the appointee who vacated effective the 2nd of July. I want to thank all of the very fine citizens of the Caledonia School District who applied. It's a big honor to serve, and it's good to see that people in the community recognize that too, and the time you put into it is very appreciated by the community. Tonight we're going to be interviewing 6 candidates. We're going to be asking the same questions of all. We're going to have 25 minutes of questioning. We're going to try not to go over and leave a 5-minute break just for transitional purposes. And without any further questions, the board have any questions? No? Okay, we're ready for the first candidate. Welcome.
Hello,
You go by Bradley or Brad?
just Brad.
Okay. Brad, it's good to have you here. Congratulations on making it as a finalist. And tonight we're gonna be asking 6 questions, of which we gave you a little bit of a brief overview of what we'd be asking. We're gonna have each board member ask the question, and then the final question will be asked by myself, and we'll kind of wrap up. So, do you have any questions about the process that got you here? And
No,
okay,
no, just late email to me. I didn't get a chance to look it over very good because I was at work, but
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
yeah, this has been a very fast and furious pace. And
Yeah,
for you to be here, we're appreciative of that, and want you to know that all of us appreciate you being here. So we'll begin with question 1 and turn it over to Jessica Cohn.
I get to start. Mike, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, nice to meet you, Brad. Thanks for coming again. Question number 1, why are you interested in serving on the Caledonia Board of Education? And what is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities in contrast to the responsibilities of district administration and staff?
I'll answer the first part first. I'm not 100% sure, I've never been part of a board, but my understanding is, they kind of oversee the administration of, maybe policies, rules, regulations, stuff like that. interested to learn more. But why I wanna serve is, honestly, I love this community. This community has been absolutely fantastic. We moved here in like 2009-ish area. I've got my daughter, she's gonna be at Duncan this year. And just everything school related has been fantastic. My son Anthony is at Emmons. And the school, with the help of Kent County, recognized some issues, some learning disabilities with him. And this school system just stepped up like crazy. Those IEPs, the people in those meetings are fantastic. It's just, it's very wonderful. It's fantastic. I don't know where he would be learning wise if we didn't have that available to us.
We'll move on to, sorry. When you speak into the mic, I'm not sure everyone can hear you back there. Okay, good. Just so, if you can hear yourself speaking, the rest of us can hear you too.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Brandon.
Alright, when making decisions as a board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own values and beliefs.
Well, like I said before, I'm a novice to this, right? So I'm not 100% sure where all that goes, but I can work as a team well together. The rules and regulations and that, I mean, I'd have to really dig into that to figure out what they are, but I can stay within a window.
Okay. There's a lot to that, again, there's a lot to that question, so if you want it repeated, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
There's a lot to that question, so I wanna make sure it's heard, it's a lot hard to follow, I think.
When making decisions as a school board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own values and beliefs.
I guess I would go students first. That would be the most important. Community, I mean, they're all very important. They all have their place in each decision that you make. You know, you can't really student first, but I don't know how you single out the rest of them after that. As far as a specific board meeting, this is my first one, so I don't have an issue at hand that I can think of that I would want to change a decision of.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
What qualities, experiences, or unique perspectives would you bring to this role, and how do you believe they would support the board's work and the district's mission?
Can you repeat that one more time for me?
What qualities, experiences, or unique perspectives would you bring to this role, and how do you believe they would support the board's work and the district's mission?
Well, I think everybody brings a unique perspective to everything. And obviously for the district, we just need to grow and maintain our current academic standards very high. I think as a manager of a dealership over there, I've worked together well with the team. I don't run my department as a dictator. I've got people there with a lot more experience than me that work under me. Several times the experience I have, and just get all of their input and figure out the best way to move forward.
Ms. Nichols.
So with regard to, so this is a category priorities and vision for the district. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing public education today? And which of those would you identify as top priorities for Caledonia Community Schools to address? What changes would you like to see in the district, and how do you envision your role in that change?
I don't have a motive for doing this, so I don't have a specific thing that I would like to change. I would just like to see the district grow and continue to be, kind of the place that people wanna go in West Michigan. I mean, there's a reason people move here. They move here because of the schools. We moved here because of the schools. We specifically, when we first moved to Grand Rapids, we were in the Kentwood area, and that's not where we wanted to raise our kids. We wanted to raise them right here. So I think you just need to grow as the community, keep high standards, and get enrollments up.
Trustee Barbara Garcia.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what does it mean to you, or what would it mean to you, to serve the entire Caledonia community as a board trustee? How would you balance your individual convictions, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation to operate lawfully and transparently under Michigan law?
That was a lot. Could you say that one again?
Indeed. Yeah, what does it mean to you to serve the entire Caledonia community as a board trustee? In addition to that, how would you balance your individual convictions, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation to operate lawfully and transparently under Michigan law?
It would make me very proud to be able to serve this board. There's a couple of things that I've, wanted to check off my list as being an adult. I did one of those a couple years ago when I got sworn in as a reserve sheriff deputy. I really wanted to do that, and I did that one. This one's been on my list for a while. I know my answer of I don't come to these meetings and whatnot might not suggest that, but I work in retail, so the hours are a little bit long. And I think that just, the community input on decisions is probably a big one, and also the teachers, the administrators. I mean, I know a little bit, right, but I don't know as much as they do. I mean, especially the teachers that have been here for 20 plus years. I mean, how am I gonna know better than them what is supposed to be done educationally wise?
Okay. Get my mic working here again. The last question we have for you is really up to you to just let us know a little more about you. Give us more details that you think are important to us about yourself that you think we might need to know as we're making a decision on our appointment candidate.
No, not a whole lot. Like I said, I'm an import from here, from the other side of the state originally, fell in love with the area and stayed. My mother runs part of the Saginaw County Head Start. My sister's a teacher at Corunna, which if you would have seen me in high school, you wouldn't have thought that that was gonna be part of my future or be sitting here and trying to do this. But we all change a little bit as we get older, and this would be a very, very nice opportunity for me.
Thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate your input and your answers, and we will be in touch with you tonight.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me. I gotta tell you, I was surprised it made the top. But, all right, that way.
Yeah,
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks.
welcome Mr. Bernie Nagel.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on your making it to the finalists as our appointment candidate. And do you have any questions about the process we went through thus far?
No, one thing about being on the board, you learn to trust decisions, right? Because we all come in with a variety and everything, and so I trust the decision that you guys are making and will make.
Thank you. So we have 6 questions tonight.
Sure.
It's gonna start off with trustee Cohen asking the first question.
Sure.
And we have about 25 minutes to go through the questions. If you want the question read again, please feel free to ask to have it read again. They are a bit extensive,
Okay.
so we just want you to make sure you're comfortable with the content of the question so you can form an answer to that.
Absolutely.
So, and we're gonna go right down the line, ending up with me in the last question. And like I said, we got about 25 minutes, so,
Perfect. Let's use them up.
all right. I'll turn it over to trustee Cohen.
Hi Bernie, how are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
It is a kind of a longer question, it's kind of 2 sections.
Okay.
Why are you interested in serving on the Caledonia Board of Education? And what is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities in contrast to the responsibilities of district administration and staff?
Okay, well, those are great questions. First off, why I'm interested in running is I have served before on the Caledonia School Board, and I've always loved the opportunity to be able to serve in the community, help our kids, help our teachers, and I was just telling Daryl out there, I thought about actually rerunning for the board a while back, but I wound up with a bunch of health issues that we had to overcome, so this came at a very opportune time to see if I could get back in and serve in our community. And the relationship I see to the board and the administration is the board actually has one job. And I remember going to, I think it was board member keys or something like that. It was training back then, and it says the one job of the Board of Education is to hire the best superintendent we can hire and let the expert do the job. We still should always be aware of everything's going on, and I know through our weekly communications that that usually was always the case. That the superintendent always kept us very well informed to help us make the decisions that guide the policy, because that's all we are. We're guides to the policy, and our number one job is always to hire the expert, which I have to give you guys credit from everything I've heard. You've done very well. I haven't heard a lot of complaints, and I have in the community. That's good.
We'll take that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Brandau, please.
Alright, when making decisions as a board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own value and beliefs.
You want one of them, or you want to try to have a broad scope over a lot of them? I think, I think community issues is probably a big one, because the perception that our community have of us is how we're able to serve them. You know, if we have good relationships in the community, we have good relationships with staff. I mean, I worked in the school for 2 years, and I had great relationships with the teachers that I had the opportunity to work with. Even one of the students from my classroom, still, I take him out to lunch. You know, so it's always developing those relationships, whether it's among us here on the board, among our administrators, or the staff that we get to interact with. I've always taken great pride in being able to listen to what they ask. And you know, I mean, you all know, sometimes we get a little stuff from the community that may not be very important, but to them it's very important. They need to be heard. They need to be felt like, okay, Bernie heard me. What is Bernie gonna do about it? Well, again, Bernie can't make a decision on his own for this board. This is a collective body of power, right? So, but I can bring the issue up and say, hey, you know, there is this concern, there is this perception. How can we address it? And maybe it's something we don't even have to address. But it is if it is something that we need to address, then let's talk about it. And that's where this all happens, is in here. You know, it doesn't happen out there. It has to happen in here. And the decisions we make are only as good as all of us.
I'm gonna go ahead and read it one more time since
Sure.
I did it for the last one. When making decisions as a board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own values and beliefs.
Okay, a concern I guess I would have, and I don't know the details again, because I'm no longer working there, or and I'm not on the board, but I was in the special ed department, cognitively impaired. And Mrs. Carter, who I believe has moved on, or at least gone back to school, for getting her master's. You know, she was a really good teacher. I really loved and appreciated her, but I did have a concern because a couple of parents that were in that class last year have called me over the summer and said, have we heard who the new teacher is? Have we, you know, how are we doing there? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any input on that. But again, I'm gonna trust that you guys do. So that's the way I handle it. I'm like, you know, Alicia, just trust the board. They know what we need. And I guess, you know, I was disappointed when we took away the transition program too in Caledonia. But I understood the reason why. I guess that was the important part, because the students who were in the program were not Caledonia students. They were mostly out-of-district students coming in and being in that program. And so fiscally, I'm sure it did not make sense to continue that program for out-of-district students. And I wish we could have continued it. So I guess that's my personal desire, you know, because I always think Caledonia offers the best programming there is around. I mean, when I was on the board, and I'm gonna go back to that, you know, we were the star that everyone wanted to achieve to. Caledonia Community Schools. They were the high point of everything, you know, and that's what I like to see us as. You know, we're what we should always be, leading to have what everyone else wants, you know, and I think we mostly do. I'm not sure I can name one specific issue right at this time that I would say is out there that we need to address or change. I mean, obviously I'm concerned about our funding. I mean, I just heard last week, the federal finally was releasing state aid money down to the states. You know, I'm sure we don't know yet what our state aid per student is going to be. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But, you know, those are all things I continue to think about, even though I'm not in your seat. But, you know, how are we going to continue to fund, making sure that we are doing the absolute best there is for our students and staff? You know, I don't know where you guys are in the process, but I know this is a negotiation here. And, you know, everyone likes to get more money. Everyone likes to, you know, have that bigger paycheck, more benefits. But there is still parameters of what we can do as a district, because it all comes down to how much money we have.
Steve comments?
What qualities, experiences, or unique perspectives would you bring to this role, and how do you believe they would support the board's work and district's mission?
I think one of the qualities I bring, I have 20 years of experience. I think that's a pretty good quality to have behind me. I've also served in many different leadership roles at my work at FedEx for 30 years. I served a lot of different leadership roles, designing routes, designing how things are done. I owned my own business. I was a farmer. That's actually how I know John. From his grandfather, I worked for him. And then I worked in nuclear meds, again, delivering nuclear meds and designing routes for efficiency on time, and everything's very time sensitive, so. And I'm a leader, I've been a leader at our church for 40 years, leading high school ministries. I've taught many times in classes, I've taught on trips. I design the trips and see that they all work. I set up transportation, so I play a lot of those different roles, whatever they may need, just to ensure that we can do what we say we're gonna do. 2 years ago, I took 20 students to London, and that was a very interesting trip. London's a very unique place, lots of diversity, but it was well done. I liked it. We had a very successful time there. So I think that qualifies me for a lot of different things. I mean, because like I said, I've served, I've led, and I'm not really afraid to voice my opinion, but I'm not afraid to listen. Someone has a better objective or opinion in that too.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing public education today? And which of those would you identify as a top priority for Caledonia Community Schools to address? What changes would you like to see in the district, and how do you envision your role in that change?
I may ask you to reread the second part of that, but the first part, again, I'll come back to, I think our biggest challenge is always finance. We spend 87-90% of all of our money on people. So that's really all we have. We have people. And if you own a business, you have a product. Like, okay, I own a water company. My job is to sell this bottle of water. But in the education business, we don't have that. We don't have a product. All we have is making sure that our students are successful. I know students that have come out of this district that are gone on to be doctors. I know a couple lawyers. I know guys that are just working in phones, making as much money as some of the lawyers. But so I think our job, number one for us, is preparing each student for the diversity of what is out there in the world. It's not like it's, today I'm done and tomorrow I'm gonna go to work for GM and punch tires. I am going to go out into a world that is, again, full of diversity and challenges. I hope, and I've seen it, that we have prepared these students for that. That when they leave here, they're able to go to college. They're able to succeed in college. I have a grandson that graduated last year. And, he thought he was gonna go into sports therapy, sports medicine. A year into college, he's looking like he might do something a little different now. But we set him up for that. We set him up to figure out what's out there, And I think that's our biggest challenge and goal, is to making sure that we're setting these students, when we hand them that diploma and they walk off that stage, they can say, I'm ready for college, I'm ready for that job, I'm ready to do whatever is required of me. And I think that's our biggest challenge. And your second part of that question was what?
So the second part of the question said, what changes would you like to see in the district, and how do you envision your role in that change?
Changes I'd like to see in the district. Currently, because I'm not in you guys' place, I cannot think of looking in from the outside, anything that I see a bright red bulb on, you know, we are not doing a good enough job, you know. Again, one of the things I've always been about is making sure that we have the right teachers in the classrooms. And I've always said, and I'd say it again, you give me a teacher with heart for the students and we'll get them the piece of paper they need on the wall to say that they're qualified. Because I can't give them that heart. I can make sure they get the qualifications in that piece of paper to hang on the wall. But I can't instill that heart and love for students. So as long as we keep getting students, our teachers with that heart for students, you know, I think we're doing it right. So, yeah.
Last question,
Okay.
or second to last question maybe. What does it mean to you, and you've spoken to this a little bit already, but what does it mean to you to serve the entire Caledonia community as a board trustee? How would you balance your individual convictions, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation, of course, to operate lawfully and transparently under Michigan law?
Well, I think to be part of the board, the number one thing, like I said, is I am one person. I am not going to go out and speak for this board and say, well, you know, this is what I believe. If it's a Caledonia community school issue, then that's the perspective I share, is what have we as a collaborative board decided? Do we follow what we believe? We stand united? I mean, I've seen in the board notes that not all of the board decisions in here were 7-0. You know, there were a few 4-3s, 5-2s, you know, but that's okay because we're showing what we believe, you know, and we're standing up for that. And I think that's important, you know, that our perspective from the people who, well, I haven't been elected, but from the people who, you know, you're working with, we all come at these with different perspectives. And I think it's our job on the board to bring those to each other and then sit around this table and discuss them and hammer them out. And again, at the end of the day, it might not be a 7-0 decision. It might only be a 5-2 decision. But when Bernie Nagel walks out that door, it's a 7-0 decision, you know, because I'm not going to be a dissenting vote in my community because we decided this together, and that's the way I would do it, you know. And the last part of that was something like,
Yes, just how do you balance those individual convictions you have, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation to operate lawfully and transparently under Michigan law?
well, again, you said under Michigan law, so we are governed by certain rules and regulations. So therefore, you know, we're all subject to those. And, you know, we should understand them and know them. And I'm sure Derek's gonna keep us informed of them as we come up to against them, because I know policies are coming to us all the time. This needs to be updated, or something like that. And so, you know, you're gonna depend upon those kind of things as the input for the Michigan law. But to balance like personal perspectives and everything, you know, I'm at least retired now. I have a wonderful job where I can work when I want. If I don't want to work, I don't have to work. You know, I deliver buses for Hooks for Transportation. You know, and there's a call up, hey Bernie, can you take a bus to Bad Axe tomorrow? Yeah, I can do that. You know, so if I don't want to, maybe call me Thursday. You know, but you know, that's the freedom that I am now at to balance my life. It's not like I'm working 50 hours at FedEx anymore. So, you know, it makes life a little easier. I still volunteer a ton of time in different places, i.e. my church. You know, is a place I volunteer at because I love teaching kids. I love working with kids. I've worked in the high school ministry for as long as I can remember. I have never worked in junior high because junior hires drive me crazy, to be honest. They don't know if they're an adult or a kid. You know, they're so in between there. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. They just really don't know. And I have one of those in my grandchildren. And, you know, I spent enough time with him to know that he's in that point yet. He's not sure which side he's on, the adult or the child. Yeah, so that's really, I feel like I'm in a wonderful place to serve and do things right now because I have the freedom and the time now to do pretty much what I want. You're welcome. Well, Tim, it looks like you get to be the last one up.
Yeah, I'm the follow-up to everything.
Okay.
So, Bernie, what else would you like to tell us about yourself?
Well, you know, I've laid a lot of stuff out. I think anyone that knows me or knows of me know how much I care about this community. We've lived here 45 years, I don't even know. I was just a young punk when we moved here, and my family all grew up here, and all my kids graduated from here. Now my grandchildren are graduating from here. You know, I have a freshman starting in a couple weeks, and I think I could be a blessing. Maybe that's too optimistic of a word for the school board, but I think I could bring a unique perspective because of my past on the board and my willingness to look forward to the future. Because I think, again, credit to you guys, you know, you've done a lot of things right. You know, like I said, I'm out in the community, I'm having breakfast with people, hanging out, and I'm not hearing a lot of discourse about you guys, about this school board, about our leadership. You know, I mean, you hear people sometimes grumble, say, oh, I wish they'd do this or they'd do that. But you know what? That's people. And one of the things we have to learn is that we give it that time to listen to them again. And there are some things we can do and some things we can't, you know. And so we come about doing what we can do. And you know, we answer the questions the best we can for them, like, you know, when we're standing in front of a parent and they're yelling at us and screaming at us, which I have faced. And, you know, I've always said to them, I'll call you back. And then I make a call and find out the other side of the story, why I was attacked at a meeting. And, you know, I've never not returned a phone call to a parent and never not followed up, because that's what they expect. You know, you guys are all elected, and I was elected before, and you know there are expectations on elected officials. You know, are you representing me? Are you taking what I care about in this school system? You know, are you bringing it to the board? Are you bringing it to the superintendent? Yeah, that's important. We are, but you know, if it's just a parent having a bad day, that's okay. We all have those. And it's okay to have them, but we just listen. And sometimes that's what a parent or a student needs, is to be listened to. You know, so I think that's a strength that I bring. I can listen. I don't get upset easy. It does take quite a bit to fire me up. But, you know, I have passions. You know, and one of my passions is to see that, you know, I'm active in our community. You know, you come Friday night football games, you're gonna find me sitting out there watching them. You might even find me at a musical or two, which I can't sing, I can't hold a note, I can't do any of that, but I go to them. You know, because I'm in the community, and that's what's important. So.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bernie Nagel, we appreciate your time.
Anytime.
We will be back in touch with you very shortly tonight.
Oh, tonight, fine. I didn't know if you had interviews tonight, tomorrow, how long?
We are running, I'm sorry if I didn't
Oh, that's
speak
fine.
to that, we're running 6 interviews tonight.
You guys have a long
6
night.
finalists. Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank each and every one of you for your time, and I hope I can be available if you need me.
Thank you, sir.
You guys have a great evening.
You can follow Daryl out.
Oh, yeah. I followed Daryl before.
Is it a good or bad ending?
I might have hiring.
You interviewed me.
Welcome, Carrie Dykehouse.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being part of the 6 finalists for the appointment to the trustee candidacy. Do you have any questions about the process that we went through to get here?
Not right now, I don't.
We're gonna be asking 6 questions, of which you have information on the categories. If you would like to have the question reread, please do. They are a bit lengthy and you get lost. And we're gonna start with trustee Cone and work our way down, and I'll have the final wrap-up question. We're here for about 25 minutes.
Sounds good.
Hi Carrie, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is a question around motivation and role understanding. Why are you interested in serving the Caledonia Board of Education? And what is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities in contrast to the responsibilities of district administration and staff?
Okay, that's one of those loaded
Yeah, and
questions
I
you
can
talked
answer- I
about.
can
That's
answer-
good.
yeah.
Okay, I'll do my best and then tell me if I missed any sections of it. So my family and I have 2 kids, and so the 4 of us moved back to West Michigan in 2014. And one of our primary goals was to be closer to family. Hello, free childcare. And so that was a major part, but then where we landed, a lot of it, because we still had, they were 1 and 3, almost 2 and 4 at the time. So we knew that where we landed was gonna, a big impact was the schools that they were gonna go to. So we looked at a variety of areas because they were way too far from a target, so it had to be semi closer to a target that we lived. And so we looking at schools was a big deal, and so Caledonia schools stuck out to us in a lot of ways. It was rated well, it was highly talked about. And had highly qualified teachers. So that was really important to us. And then also, even though, people might complain about the sprawl of Caledonia, there's still quite a bit of space compared to some other spaces. So to be able to have that space in combination with a great school with lots of co-curricular activities was really important to us as well. I'm a marching band girl, so I wanted them to have opportunities for marching band and not too small that they couldn't participate in that. They're choosing not to, but whatever, that's a whole other thing. So that's the main, the draw of being a part of that and continuing that legacy of excellence is really important to me. And then also, at different ages and stages of your family life and development, you have different times for being able to serve in different ways. And I've served in different ways in different communities throughout my time. But this seemed like a good time. Again, the ages and stages of the kids are a little bit older now, to be able to serve in this way. I try to lead wherever I'm placed, and regardless of my title or role, whether as a teacher, an assistant director, mom, all the different ways that we can lead. I lead where I am, and so I just thought that this was a good fit and blend of all the things that are important to me. And then, I feel like that was kind of part of the first part, but then you also talked about,
What is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities in contrast to the responsibilities of district administration and staff?
Sure. I like a good acronym, and so I was trying to find an acronym out of the board, what they oversee, and for better or for worse, it was F's. So it was educating students, facilities, finances, safety, and staffing. And so that was really important to me, although it was slightly in contradiction to my understanding of more what the superintendent is involved with as far as staffing is concerned. But still the overarching understanding that the board's role is more of a broad view, and that but that we hear from the community and help work in partnership with the superintendent and the teachers to create that environment of excellence that we all want for our kids. And then the contrast, did you say?
Yeah.
Say that part again.
Basically, what is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities,
yes.
which I think you said,
Yeah.
which was great. And then the contrast to how does that differ from the district's responsibilities
Yes.
with the administration and staff? Yeah.
So yes, and then and actually that was helpful to know as well, because when I wasn't educated for that hot minute, it was a smaller school, and so then the board's responsibility was more like this person would like to go on PTO for an extended period of time, and that's a little outside of the purview of the board. So it was just helpful to know the difference in this particular Board of Education. So, thanks.
Okay, when making decisions as a board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own values and beliefs.
Okay, so this one I only I got half prepared for under this section. So I've only I don't know if I have a specific one that I've paid attention to, and maybe that's a good thing because you pay more attention to ones that rile you. And so I haven't had any that I'm like, ooh, that really gets under my skin. So in some ways, that part is a good thing. And then list the things at the end that you talked about.
Yep, I'll reread it, I've read them all.
Okay.
When making decisions as a board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own values and beliefs.
So I don't know a lot about it, so not enough to have a super strong opinion about it, but I know that it was a balancing act, and I don't even know if it's a decision or just kind of a thought process on the idea of masks and what the school will do if there's another mandate and things like that. So I don't necessarily know enough of the details to have a super strong opinion about it, but knowing that you're balancing all of those things even within that one. So you're balancing the state law, you're balancing parental and community and student learning aspects all rolled into one. That might be one of the things that brings all of those together in a really big way. I think there's a variety. I think taking into consideration all of those is really important. One of the things that has guided me, I haven't finished it yet, but I've started it multiple times, so that counts, I'm pretty sure, as finishing the whole book, is the book Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, which is about making changes. And one of the things that they talk about is the elephant and the rider and the path. So the elephant is the emotional side of things, and the rider is the logical side of the decision making, and then the path is just kind of what you have to navigate together. And I think as a board, it's important to understand the emotion behind all of those decisions that go into it, but also to bring the logic side to it as well. You can't have one without the other because you don't have buy-in if you don't have the emotion. You miss some things, you miss some of the key elements if you miss that communication, whether it's from students, parents, community, you miss that emotional piece. But then there's also some behind the scenes logic that sometimes we have to make decisions that not everyone is gonna be a fan of from the feeling side of it, because that's what has to happen either fiscally or just logistically within it. So I think that being able to take in those broad considerations is important in that and making a well-informed decision on it.
What qualities, experiences, or unique perspectives would you bring to this role, and how do you believe they would support the board's work and the district's mission?
Well, I'm familiar with Robert's rules of, oh, now I lost it because I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Robert's Rules of Order. So that helps. I mean, we don't say I'm at the dinner table or anything, so sometimes I need a little refresher, but I'm at least familiar enough with them to jump in. I'm also a really quick learner, and so I think that helps a lot, especially with a tight turnaround. Like, I wish I could have been a little more prepared, but I feel like I know what I know, but I also know what I have to learn, which is important when I'm hiring student workers in my role. I want both, because if they think they know everything, it's gonna be a rough road. If they don't know anything and I need to tell them how to cut a piece of ribbon, don't worry, I did that today, then that's a whole nother thing. Like, they need to know a little bit to move forward. Say the last part again. I get so distracted by ribbon.
Me too.
Yeah.
How do you believe they would support
Oh,
the
yes.
board's work and district's mission?
So I have had kind of a long and winding path, and every once in a while I wonder how all those things are connected, but then there are times like this or other times in my career where I see them all come together. So I started off, like I said, as a teacher of 7th and 8th graders, and I don't know if I liked it in part because it's a little bit of a shock value when you say that you enjoy teaching middle schoolers, but also I felt like that's a sweet spot of students, and now I kind of have middle schoolers, and I know why. I love this age. So I have the background of being in education, but I also have my master's in administrative leadership, so I also understand the kind of the broader view of it as well, and have really devoted a lot of my life to education at a variety of ages and stages. And I currently work in higher education, so seeing incoming students, I understand the importance of a solid K-12 education to better prepare. When we were talking yesterday, and they were talking about the AP credits and about how that saves you a lot of money, that's no joke, like that's a serious thing. In fact, I have to draw the line, I work in housing, and so I have to draw the line, no, this is your year. I know you came in with a whole bunch of credits, but you're not a junior based on what meal plan you have to have. That's, anyway. But it's important, and it saves them a lot of money, and you have a lot of students who are able to graduate in 3 years, which is a huge savings. So to be able to see the whole spectrum, I think, is helpful as well. Also, I think as a parent that gives of 2 Caledonia students who I thought I got permission to run for this, and then they were like, wait, you did that? And I was like, I did, and I told you that. But anyway, so I pseudo have their permission to run for this. But they're current students in the system, and I think that gives me a unique perspective as well, because I see kind of the front end of it, the communication that we hope to get across. I see it on my side of things. I also learned to not take what they say word for word. It's a trust but verify kind of a situation, and so I know that I really liked. I kind of assumed this was the case, but seeing it laid out, like you start with the teacher and then you go to the principal and then the superintendent. I think there's one more in between the board. There's 5, I think. But knowing that process as well is really, really helpful. I am also, in my current role, I was nominated by and voted on by my peers to be a part of the Employee Wellbeing Committee. And so I serve on that committee and get to use Robert's rules for that as well. And so we help make decisions in shaping the culture of our faculty and staff members. And so I think that has me uniquely qualified as well. And then I also do fun things, like we 3 years ago began a new thing called Mayhem Day, where faculty and staff basically get to play in teams to build up some morale and some momentum. And so it might seem like a small thing, but it really impacts the day-to-day work and the collegiality between folks as well. So that's just kind of a broad smattering, but I think those kind of all play into my roles. Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing public education today? And which of those would you identify as top priorities for Caledonia Community Schools to address? What changes would you like to see in the district, and how do you envision your role in that change?
Good question. I think probably one of the biggest challenges, at least top of mind, there's always going to be more or ones that come out of the woodwork that you didn't anticipate. But one of the biggest ones I do think is technology use, because I think you can say it's a home issue, but it ends up being a school and a community-wide issue as well. And so how best to, what comes to mind for me is I have a coworker who's the school that her daughter goes to, everyone has to put their cell phone in a bag with a magnet. It's a whole system thing that they can't open till the end of the day. And my gut reaction was, well, what about the safety? Because if something happens, you want your kid to be able to text you that they're okay. There's something that also brings safety and peace of mind about that. But you also are then balancing their ability to learn and their social aspects and social media and things like that. And so I don't think that I have the right answer, but I think that it's a big one that's not going to go away in developing policies that balance the freedom of the communication and the devices and the property, and then also the ability to learn and create that excellent learning environment. So that's one of the biggest ones. And then, but that was there's still a 2-part question. Can you say that last part again?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing public education today? And I feel like you addressed that, but then what changes would you like to see in the district? And how do you envision your role in that change?
Yeah. I probably could think about this one more. Because like I said, with some of the other things, if something doesn't get under skin, you don't feel like an immediate need to change. But I think sometimes it's in the small things. I was looking at just the brief one pager, that's kind of a handy thing, but like with the strategic plan and talking about connections and community. So that was the one that struck a chord with me the most, is getting more involved in that. Right now, my connections have been more age appropriate, going to a glow dance, who doesn't wanna go to a glow dance, and meeting with other parents and students in that way. But especially coming off of a time of isolation, both because of the pandemic, but then also because of isolation from social media and being on our phones, which I'm guilty of too. I think that personal connection with our community is helpful both for the interpersonal side, but then also for the relational side, and being able to see that we have a lot in common when we're so polar in our views. It's helpful to see people and as humans, and so I think that connection and community is a big thing that I would want to be involved with, in both finding out more of what we do and then also how we can increase that. I had that happen at a spelling bee, and it was like super quiet, and then my phone went off and I was like, oh, sorry kid, but she can't spell anyway, so.
I thought I deleted. I apologize.
Alright. So what would it mean to you to serve the entire Caledonia community as a board trustee? How would you balance your individual convictions, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation to operate lawfully and transparently under Michigan law?
Good question. I think, so one, let me just think which one I wanna use the most. I think after hearing like 6 of these in a row, which 3 hours, good on you all, but I'm like, how do I make this not boring either? So I think I'm gonna get there, but if not, you just tell me, okay? But over 15 years ago, we went to this bed and breakfast in Montana, and there were these two, the proprietors or whatever didn't have any kids, and they were railing about how their tax money was going to education. They didn't even have kids in the school. And I don't think I said it out loud, because why would you do that when you're there for like one night, right? But in my mind, I was thinking, I don't think you get it, because the point of education in a community is not for your individual kids, it's for the greater good. It's for our future leaders, our future caregivers, future workers, and that depends on an educated society. And whether they students choose to continue to do a trade after graduation, whether they go on to higher education, whatever they choose for their path that's right for them and that they feel empowered and equipped to do, is really an important, I mean, that's our future, that's our social security is these kids. I was practicing some questions with my 12-year-old who was moderately helpful, and she was like, it's for the future. But it's true, and that's what it's for. So keeping that at the forefront, I think, is helpful as we balance. I'm not just doing this for me. I don't have a personal agenda for me and my 2 kids. I'm doing it for the greater good and for a society that knows the difference between there, and there. That's really important to me. As well as knowing our history and knowing different viewpoints and being able to ask about them. I kind of love it when my kid comes home and he's like, let's talk about this thing that's happening in the news. Like one of my friends said this, but one of my friends said that. What a great opportunity to discern what our values are at home versus what they're learning at school. And I think that's part of the greater good, is learning from each other and learning from differences, and learning how to be better humans to each other. So, okay, did I hit most of it? Okay, all right. And then I should set a timer. Okay, I'm doing okay, all right. Okay.
We'll keep you on time.
Okay, good. I just get excited.
So last question is, Carrie, what would you like to share with us? Anything additional that you think we should know about you?
I mean, where to start? One other thing, I mean, not hugely, but I just want you to know that I know how to be a professional, but that I'm also fun. And when you spend a lot of time with a group, I think that that's important and not to be devalued. But also, I think, again, I'll say this part because I think it does speak to the broader side of it. But when I was, my husband and I were first married, and we just celebrated 20 years. But when we were first married, he had the gall to put a pot in the dishwasher. And I was like, that is not gonna happen in our house. You do not put pots in the dishwasher. And he's like, why? I'm like, because that's the way it happens. So I did what any mature young person would do, and I said, I'm calling my mom. And so I called my mom and I was like, right, we don't put pots in the dishwasher. And she goes, I mean, you could, we just didn't because it took up too much space and like there's nothing to say that you can't. And I say this because A, I was like, I was humbled, but B, there's something that I thought as the truth and the one way that you do things and the one way that things should be. And I didn't think about another perspective or a way that like my growing up would have influenced that particular truth. And so I really think that's important to know that other people come from different backgrounds and other people have differing views. And so to be able to think, okay, why would they put the pot in the dishwasher, so to speak, is an important thing to think about when you're taking into consideration families, community members, businesses that are all coming from different perspectives and say this is the way that things need to be moving forward. So that's not necessarily about me, but that's where I'm coming from. And yeah, I think that's all I have. Oh, and then generally, other than maybe this description that I'm giving you right now, I'm generally organized and also have relational skills. Like I love math and spreadsheets. But I also love hanging out with friends and playing. We played a parents versus kids kickball game a little bit ago, which I personally think there should be a board versus something kickball game, but that's for another day. Anyway, that's all I have to share.
Great, thank you, Carrie. We will be in touch with you tonight.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you for coming.
see you. Good to see you.
Hi, Brittany Barber Garcia. Nice to meet you, Jim.
Nice to meet you. Good to see you, Sean. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
I can call you Jim.
You can.
Well, congratulations, you're a finalist of 6 in the process for us to make a decision on appointing the next trustee in Caledonia Community Schools.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Do you have any questions about the process that we let up here?
Pretty clear, thank you, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, we wanna make sure you're comfortable, and some have had questions outside of this, so I wanna make sure that I ask that question. We're gonna go through the board and asking questions, there'll be 6. We'll start at one end of the board and I'll end up with the last question and from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Trustee Coe?
I'm the first one, so it's kind of a 2-part question, just so you're made aware. So why are you interested in serving on the Caledonia Board of Education? And what is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities in contrast to the responsibilities of district administration and staff?
Sure, thank you for asking. I've served on board, as you saw, probably saw from the resume, I've served on 14 years of school board experience, and I felt like this was a good time for me to really help out the district possibly for this 1.5 years. Maybe it turns into longer, but for right now, I felt it was a good chance to help out, bring my experience in, help get things through. You have a lot of issues coming up with probably superintendent evaluation, I'm assuming, and you've got negotiations, so there's a lot going on, and bring somebody totally new that didn't know the system, didn't know how things work, might be a little more work, might be a little more training. I felt like I could be helpful in that situation. And then the second part of the question, can you repeat the second part, please?
Absolutely. What is your understanding of the board's primary responsibilities in contrast to the responsibilities of district administration and staff?
Yeah, so the responsibility of a school board in general, regardless of where you are in the state, revolves around the sometimes creation, but most often the approval of policy, review and approval of policy, whereas the superintendent and the staff are administering that policy. So there's the differentiation there. With finances, the director of finance, the superintendent, the staff here are putting together a budget, bringing it to the board for approval. And then the implementation of that budget goes back to the schools to make sure that that happens. There has to be a really delineation between the board and everything else, because we're not micromanagers. We're not in there running the schools. We're not telling the superintendent really, we're working with the superintendent, but we're not telling the principals what to do. We're telling the teachers what to do. There's a kind of a chain of command, I guess you can say. And so the board is working with the superintendent to help direct all of that. But I think there needs to be that delineation between the two. There's also policy, you're gonna remember all the policy, finance. And then there's, obviously hiring, and hopefully we don't get to the point of letting a superintendent go, but that would be part of the duties is working with the superintendent and renewing that contract, et cetera. So those are some of the main responsibilities that, there's policy as well. Working with the policy, reviewing and making sure they're up to date, using your legal counsel to make sure that you're getting any necessary updates, reviewing those, constantly reviewing policies to make sure that they're kind of in alignment with what the district's goals are. So that would be my answer, I think, to that one.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I will read this one twice, this is a long one too. When making decisions as a school board member, you need to consider many factors. Identify a recent board issue that you felt strongly about and describe how you would prioritize the following factors and why. Student learning, parental input, staff considerations, community concerns, state and federal law, as well as your own values and beliefs.
Yep, so I think first of all, I'm gonna go backwards a little bit with that one because I think it's important that although we have our beliefs and we can certainly express those, we need to act when we act on a policy, when we act on a situation that comes up, we really have to put our personal opinions aside for the most part, and we have to act on the best interest of the students. So whether that is a policy that's gonna affect them directly or indirectly, or whether it's something that happened with a student or a curriculum question or whatever it might be, we have to look and see what solution will be to the betterment of the students. That's gotta be the key to it all. And we need to take into consideration the community that might show up and the opinions you might hear from the community. We need to take into consideration certainly our superintendent and our staff. I mean, they're trained to do what they do. If we did our job, which I feel we have in Caledonia, we have a quality superintendent, we have quality administrators, and we have quality teachers. So we have to take their kind of their opinions, if it's maybe it's a for your curriculum issue, for example. But to go back to, I think the very beginning you said maybe a situation that's come up. You know, when I was a past board member, we had a situation where a kindergartner brought a knife to school. That's a tough situation. The kindergartner didn't bring it with the intention of hurting anybody, but nevertheless, state law is state law. We didn't have an option in what we had to do, but we made every effort we could to make sure that that kindergartner had constant contact with the teacher while he's at home, because there was a period of time that he had to be suspended. Like, it was a tough decision, but state law is state law. There was another situation where there was a curriculum issue and approving an individual book. I don't think it was the whole curriculum. But when it got down to when we reviewed the process that the teachers had gone through of selecting it, it then went back to the policy. Like, what is our policy? What's our procedure for approving curriculum? And in order to follow, if we follow procedure, we were approving that curriculum. If we were following some of our personal beliefs, we weren't approving the curriculum. And so all I did, you know, I respected everybody that had their opinions. I said everybody has to decide what they're gonna do in this situation. But if we're following policy, this is what we need to do. And then I left it at that and the vote happened. And that's kind of what needs to happen, I think. Everybody certainly has their opportunity to speak and present their opinions. But when it gets down to it, hopefully it's policy that's being followed when you're making decisions like that.
I had to read it once.
If you're good with that, I can reread it if you want me to. I can reread it if you want me to, if you're good.
I'm good, I think. Thank you.
What qualities, experiences, or unique perspectives would you bring to this role, and how do you believe they would support the board's work and the district's mission?
Sure, I mean, we have a strong board. We have people that have now experience. We have some new members, but I feel that they've done a good job from what I've been able to gather of trying to learn about the responsibilities and learn about the roles on the board. I feel I do bring some experience. I think that will help in the transitionary period, whether it's, you know, just the next year and a half or longer, but I think that will help in making maybe things go a little smoother. And I think my leadership on both the board experience, which was from a board trustee on up to a vice president, will just help me to understand, help me to come into it with an understanding what it takes to be a good board member. I'm also gone through up to into the 300 levels of board training with MASB. Granted, like I said in my letter, it was a few years ago, so some of that stuff's been updated and that's fine. But that's the foundation was there of my kind of understanding of what, you know, what the finances are about, what it means to finance a school, what it means to review and assess a policy. So I feel just that background knowledge is something that I bring to the table. I feel I'm fairly personable, I'm fairly easy to get along with. I listen to people. That doesn't mean that they're always gonna change my mind, or nor am I always gonna change everybody else's mind. I think it's the point that you're listening. And coming from the higher ed side, we talked to, when I recruit for Hope College, I talk to the students at the high school level about that. We ask you to come here and ask the big questions and have the big conversations. And in a sense, that's what I think of school board too. Ask the big questions, make sure you get the answers that you're looking for, and then you have those discussions. And that's what happens at the board level, I think, too.
Let me just flip this over, because it's a long question and I
That's
don't
okay.
wanna get it wrong.
That's perfectly okay.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing public education today, and which of those would you identify as top priorities for Caledonia Community Schools to address? What changes would you like to see in the district, and how do you envision your role in that change?
I mean, the biggest challenge that all school districts face, probably whatever state, is funding. It's that unknown, you don't always know year to year when that's funding, how much you're gonna get, when it's gonna be approved. And then trying to keep that balance of an acceptable fund balance and balancing that off on the budget and teacher negotiations and what other else might be going on. And then in the mix of that, you might have bond issues. And how do you, it took us a couple times to get that non-homestead passed. That's in a sense a no-brainer, but to somebody that owns a business or a second home, it's not necessarily a no-brainer. So it's the point of really trying to make sure that people understand what you're asking for when you go for a bond in particular. But even when it comes to the funding of a district, we don't get the type of community, well, it depends on what's going on. Normally, there's not a lot of community at meetings, there can be. But I don't think there's always an understanding necessarily in the community of what it takes to run the school district financially and even people-wise. So the better we can, the more transparent we can be, the more educational we can be in showing that during meetings, having information meetings, whatever it might be, but making sure that people understand, that the public understands kind of what we're going through as board members, and what the district is going through as they do their day-to-day functions, which I think in general, much like the operations of a board, the public doesn't really understand everything that goes on. This is not off topic, but related. When I was on one board, they always said, well, you're a 7-0 board. I'm like, well, you don't come to the committee meetings. Like, I didn't say it that way, but but I basically said, come to the committee meetings and learn what we're discussing. Like, that's where the discussions happen. That's what we're really talking about. So by the time we go to a board, we're ready to vote. And many times it's gonna be 7-0 because we've already gone through the discussions and we've answered people's questions. So I think the same way with finances, for example, making sure that people kind of understand why we have a fund equity. They just look at it as sometimes as extra money in a savings account. Well, there's a reason you have a fund equity. And even the teachers union would say it's supposed to be at a certain level. School board would say it's the state or national would say it's supposed to be a little bit higher than that. But nevertheless, is there a happy medium there between the two? And making sure they understand why we have that. That's just an example.
Thank you. So our next question is, what would it mean to you to serve the entire Caledonia community as a board trustee? How would you balance your individual convictions, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation to operate lawfully and transparently under Michigan law?
Sure. So, I mean, I'd be proud to be able to do it. Right now, I'm the president of the Caledonia Education Foundation, and I realize I'd have to give that up, not because I can't do both, but they meet the same night. So that would make it a little challenging. So that would be the only disappointing thing probably in all of this is giving that up, but I see myself going back to that or even being involved in that peripherally without necessarily being at all the meetings because I feel strongly about what the foundation does. But I feel that I don't know that some would say I feel an obligation to serve. I do enjoy serving. I do enjoy volunteering. I've been a volunteer with the Boy Scouts. I've been a volunteer. I've been on school boards, which isn't necessarily volunteer, but I've been active in things. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy participating. I enjoy contributing. But I think the important thing that has to happen tonight or whenever the decision happens is you find that you're comfortable with what you're going to choose, like the right mix for the board. What makes sense in terms of background knowledge, the fit. That's all got to be part of the decision. Can you repeat the question again? Because I feel like I'm missing something at the end.
Yeah, the second part of the question was just how would you balance your individual convictions, parent and community perspectives, and the board's obligation to operate lawfully and transparently?
Yeah. So I think as a board member, you're always subject to the questions about what's going on the board. Sean is one of my physical therapists, and I've asked him like, how are things going on the board? Like I'll ask him, there's certain things he can tell me, certain things he can't. He did a great job of saying, I can't talk about that because that's part of the negotiations or whatever it was, and I respect that. There's going to be questions you get, and you have to know where that line is, what you're able to talk about, what you're really not able to talk about, and you have to respectfully be able to answer it that way. I have opinions like everybody else does, and I think it's just the point of you expressing your opinion where it's appropriate and respectfully so, and listening to others, and ultimately you just have to make a decision as to how you're going to treat something. Much of what we as school board members have to approve are pretty basic policy related things that we don't really have an option. Like it's tied to funding or something, and we pretty much have to vote it as a yes. But there are certainly other things where we have to think about it. We have to talk about it. What makes sense? Does this policy make sense? Does this curriculum make sense? And if not, then listen to each other as to why it doesn't. And I think respect is a big part of it. Transparency, as you mentioned, is also a big part of us in our discussions, but also transparency with the community to the extent that we're allowed to do that.
So Jim, your final question is, what is it you feel we should know about you that you may not have mentioned already?
You know, I come to this not as a blank slate because I have the background knowledge, but I don't have I don't say I don't have a reason for being on the board. I don't have an agenda. I don't have there's nothing motivating me to come on the board because of this other than the desire to help and to be able to contribute. I don't think there's anything hidden. My resume kind of speaks for itself. My school board training speaks for itself. That doesn't mean I feel I'm the best candidate. I think you all have to decide that. But do I feel I can contribute? Yes. Do I feel I could better the board? Yes. And then we'll see what happens in a year and a half, whether it's something that we collectively feel that's something I want to continue with, or if not, if it doesn't work that way, then I feel like I've been able to contribute, gotten you through a year and a half of allowing of a transition, and hopefully made that a little smoother, and then give somebody time to actually run if that's not something I want to do at that point. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to mention, I noticed, and I went through a lot of the policies, skimmed through, I didn't read them word for word, but the one thing I wanted to point out, and I like this part, under 2131, under educational goals, it talks about the mission, and it talks about that we want, it says the Board of Education believes that the mission of the district is being accomplished when there's valid evidence that its educational programs are making it possible for students to achieve one or more of the following educational goals. And the other thing I wanted to point out is there's 9 or 10 of them, I think, and they're really good goals. And me as a university admissions person, I'm thinking I want to see like most of these, right? And then but we say one or more. And then underneath it though we say the board believes that all students in the district will be able to demonstrate these applied learnings at a level that's commensurate with their age. And the superintendent is charged with the responsibility for providing through the district curriculum and appropriate administrative guidelines opportunities for each student to accomplish these goals. So we're saying they only have to do one or more, but underneath it we're saying we want them to do as many of them as possible. So it just caught me like, I really like what this says, but I would like that to be a little more strong. Like we really feel these are important. And can we strive to get not just one or more, but as many as possible, or something like that. I don't know why that hit me, but I just felt really strongly when I look at preparation of our graduates, not just from the college side, I mean, this happens to be what I look at, but many of them are not college bound, they're gone for the military, or they're going to the job force. However, we're gonna prepare them, that's important. And I just feel that we've done a great job of listing things, and we shouldn't underestimate our ability, or their ability, to accomplish just one or more, but rather as many as possible. That was just something I added that in there, but.
Oh, this is your time to
Yeah.
say what you wanna
Yeah.
say, so.
But I appreciate your time, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and you have some great candidates. I've kind of looked up some of them because I'm curious about who else is interviewing. You have some good candidates, and I wish you luck in the process.
Thank you very much. We'll be getting back to you, we will be making a decision tonight.
Okay, no worries, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.